Hi, Allie.
Hello. We're back finally. We're finally back at Liverpool, USA,
Yeah.
our podcast, which is a best friends podcast. Because we are best friends. And it's the end of the year.
Yeah. Which means,
We gotta talk about the best albums of the year, I
yeah.
think. As per tradition at this point.
Yeah. I don't remember. Did we do just five last year too?
I think so. I honestly
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
really don't
But
remember, but for me, it was the perfect number to rank, so
same. Exactly, same.
yeah.
I don't think I could have come up with more, but I
No.
also couldn't have like narrowed it down a lot more either.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious to see if we have overlap. I feel
Me
like I always say
too.
this. But I know that it's not gonna be a 5 for 5. I know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I also I think I know what yours is, and I'm not gonna say what I think it is because I wanna
You probably do. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
we'll see.
But anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm excited
I
to hear.
I know that we also say this every single time, but I'm going to say it again anyway, is that
Please.
I did rank these,
Yeah.
5 to 1, but genuinely, it was impossible. Like, I could
Oh
not
yeah.
pick a 1, I could not pick a 5. All 5 of the albums, I think that I am, like, similarly familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
and like similarly, like each one, different levels and everything. So it I did rank them, but like they're really kind of all on the same level. Like they really
Yeah.
kind of are. So
No, I agree. I would say that I have a bit more of a ranking. Like I think mine are
mm,
in order, but definitely like things could swap one place here or
oh
there
yeah.
and it would still be accurate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for me it was like, well, I have to rank them because I have to say them in a certain order. Like that's pretty
yeah.
that's like pretty much it for me. So
Yeah.
Okay, so before we begin, do you want to just like get right into it, or did you have like anything else to preface before we just start ranking?
Well, we're going to say our top 5 here. And I do of course have honorable
Yeah.
mentions. So we'll save those for the end, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just wanted to ask you, what was your listening like this year? Did you listen to a lot of new music? Did you mostly listen to, stuff that you've already heard before, basically? Did you branch out at all? Like, what was your vibe with music this year?
I would have said I feel like mostly I didn't really branch out too much. Like there was a lot of music released that I didn't listen to that I could
Yeah.
have.
Yep.
At the same time though, when I was doing this, like going back and looking, I was like, oh, I did listen to a lot of new music this year. Like I really did. And even some new artists and stuff. But I think like relatively to maybe like past years of my life in music listening, um, it wasn't like really that like as much as it could have been. This year I started listening to more podcasts or podcast, I guess I should say, because I really only listen to two. Um
Yeah.
and so other like yeah, so like in terms of minutes of music listening, I did less than last year for sure, but still a decent amount. But yeah, I guess like without rambling on too long, I guess like that was like kind of
Yeah.
my yeah.
I was pretty much the same. So I did listen to new releases from artists that I have liked in the past. Like pretty much every artist that I know about that released a new album, I like at least listened to it once. Um I don't know. There are some that I didn't really, or I listened to like two songs and or I listened to the singles or whatever, and then I was like, I don't know.
Ah.
Um but I I did listen, yeah, I don't know. I did listen to a lot of new releases, Not all of them stuck with me though. I think there's like a lot of new releases that I listened to exactly once. Like I listened to it
Oh,
because I was like,
yeah.
oh, I should listen to that, and then I was like, well, I don't know when I'm ever gonna listen to that
Yeah.
again. But
Yeah, I have a
um,
playlist on Spotify that's called New Music to Hear, and I will
mhm.
add like new albums that come out to that so that I like don't just forget about them immediately, but I
What I
don't
should do?
listen to that playlist a
Well, okay, yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I honestly, yeah, there's only like a couple of new albums that I like really, really like listened to
Yeah.
a lot.
Yes.
Um, anyways, yeah, and I do think that I listened to my own like record collection a lot more this year than I did
Oh.
like random, Spotify type things where it's like new releases.
Yeah.
So I don't know, in comparison to years prior, I really didn't listen to a lot of new music this year. I mostly listened to albums that I like already own and already like.
Yeah.
Um and I will say I also let myself really just listen to whatever I wanted to listen to, which a lot of the times is the same thing over and over again. And um also I listen to a lot of just sort of like random stuff that like I wouldn't normally listen to, I guess. I don't know, maybe this will be more clear once I start revealing my top
Sure,
5.
yeah. I'm
Um
curious because I actually like don't know if I'm really sure what your top 5 is. Like as much as you think that you know what mine is, so yeah.
yeah, no, I think mine has some wild cards for sure. Mine
Yeah.
has some predictable ones as well, but it also has some wild cards. And yeah, I don't know, I listened to a lot more pop music this year than I
Oh, okay.
usually do. Um and yeah, I that's mostly how I listened. I listened to less music this year, I think, than previous years, especially on
Mm.
Spotify. My Spotify Wrapped like
Mm.
listening time, it was significantly less
Oh, wow, yeah.
than previous years. And it's I think mostly because I don't listen to music at work.
Oh, and I
Um
do. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't. And I yeah, when I'm listening to music at home, like I'm gonna put on a record. Like I'm not gonna like listen to Spotify in my headphones
Mhm.
usually.
Yeah.
So it was just like, and I didn't like take any road, well, I guess I did a little bit, but I didn't take like a lot of road trips or do a lot of driving or anything like that. So, anyways, let's get into it
Okay. Who wants to
with
start?
with all those disclaimers.
Yeah.
You start. You tell me what your number 5 is.
Okay. My number, I actually have to look at my list because I don't remember which one I put it. Number 5. My number 5 is Heart Attack Man, Freak of Nature.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a respectable choice.
Yeah.
We were just talking before we started recording about how you went and saw them.
Yes. Yeah. So my album listening, my music listening very commonly reflects um the bands that I am seeing in that particular year.
Mhm.
And this year, bands that I saw like a decent amount of the bands that I saw happened to also release a new album this year, which I guess is a lot of the time how touring works. You release an album, go on tour. So,
Yeah.
so this album, happened to be one that was released this year, and I also saw Heart Attack Man. And I think it is just a super fun album. It's edgy as expected, as one does. It's super catchy.
I agree with
There's
that.
some really fun stuff on it. I think it's really uh I like how they can take this like very pop punk but like an upbeat pop punk sound and
Mhm.
bring like a very um like edgy, I guess you could say, lyrical content in like a really like catchy, fun way. It's interesting, and I think it's a thing that could be very like cringy edgy, but
Yes,
to
but they
me
do
at
it in a
least,
way
yeah.
that like work.
Yeah, to me, they did it in a way that works, and it's self aware. Because if it wasn't self
Yes.
aware, it would be like, this is cringy. You're edge lords, you know.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah,
agree completely.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
um,
no, I like Heart Attack Man a lot.
yeah.
This album actually did not make my list. But I do like it. I think I maybe like their album before this a little bit better.
Oh, huh.
And I think maybe that's why I was like, oh, it's not like their best album, so I like didn't think to put it on this list. But I do really like it, I think. And yeah, Heart Attack Man is just really fun. Abe and I always joke about like some guy from Ohio
Yeah,
being Eric from Heart Attack Man.
yeah,
Um and yeah, also like I'll just never forget the time that we saw Heart Attack Man open for Boston Manor
yes,
and I got my glasses
yep.
kicked off of my
I think
face
about it
and you
all the
had to like
time.
dive
I
down to
was
like get them.
literally frightened when they came on
Yeah.
stage. Like I was
Yeah.
scared. You know,
The
and
both
it was
times that
fine.
I've seen
Everything
them.
was fine, but I was like,
Yeah.
you know, like I was
Both
scared.
times that I've seen them, it's been just absolutely like one of the most violent like hits that I've
Yeah,
ever like
exactly.
been
Yeah,
near.
and there was a little bit of that this last time I saw them, but
Yeah.
you know, it was
Yeah.
fine. Everything was fine. It was fun.
Everything is fine.
Yeah, yeah. Specifically, the last thing I'll say about it is on this album, a track that stands out for whatever reason, and it's literally the catchiness of it more than the lyrical content. I'll say, like, more than anything, it gets stuck in my head the most often is Like a Kennedy.
Yes, I like that one
And
too.
I'm like,
And
this is not a
kind
song
of
to be like
funny.
playing out loud on my Bluetooth speaker
Well,
at work or
yeah.
anything, but I'm like, I want to bop it all the time.
Well, and it's because it's like if you don't know about Heart Attack Man, it's like not kind of funny, but if you do, it
Yeah,
is kind of funny. You
right?
know?
Yeah, like it's definitely like, I don't know if I would call it politically correct, if you want to say
No.
that. But it's a bop to me, and yeah, so that's this album.
Um,
Big fan of it. I really like the cover with the two-headed dog and everything. Big fan.
yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
What is your
I
number
agree.
5?
My number 5 is Jenny from Thebes by the Mountain Goats.
I thought, I almost said earlier, but I didn't want to like cause
Yeah.
any spoilers. I almost said, didn't the Mountain Goats release an album this year?
They did, and it's called Jenny from Thebes. And I like it. I don't. It's okay. So the Mountain Goats have like literally 30 or so albums. Like they
Yeah.
have so many. It's absurd. They release albums so fast. I know for sure that Bleed Out by the Mountain Goats was on my top records of 2022 last
Yeah.
year. So they just are very prolific. But yeah, it's certainly not my favorite Mountain Goats album because there are 30 of them.
Yeah.
So, I it's hard to like it would be hard to get like the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
But I do like it.
Yeah.
There is a song that and I believe it's called Clean Slate. I don't actually for sure remember that that's what it's called, but I'm pretty sure it's called Clean Slate. That when I heard it for the first time, I was like, why does this sound so familiar to me? And I listened to it again and I realized that it sounds exactly like the theme song from Bluey, the kids TV show.
No.
So that was jarring, but
Can't be on
otherwise,
purpose, right?
I don't think it is on purpose. And I like Googled it and like 2 other people on all of Reddit were like, yeah, it kind of sounds like Bluey.
It's really funny. Why do
But
you
every
know the
time
Bluey theme song?
I don't know, like I've just like heard it maybe, but like I didn't place it absolutely immediately,
Yeah.
And
I
then
don't know if I would recognize it. I have, through circumstances that we don't have time to get into, I have seen the show. but
Yeah.
I would not be able to place the theme song, I don't think, but that's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways,
Is it a hit
so
though?
it kind of does slap. Um, but I don't know. I like it's a concept album, Jenny from Thebes. Um, like the cover is like this Greek mythology type lady, which is cool. And it sounds like a Mountain Goats album. I think in a good way. Like I don't mean that in a bad way at all. But it's at my number 5 spot, and I would keep it there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's solid, but it's the Mountain Goats have done a lot more that I think is better. But anyways, that's my number 5 choice.
Okay. On to number 4, I suppose.
Yeah.
My number 4 is So Much for Stardust by Fall Out Boy.
And you know what? My number 4 is also So Much for
Is it
Stardust
really? Oh my
by Fall Out
gosh,
Boy.
I love that. Of
Yeah.
course, this album's on my list. It's Fall Out
Mhm.
Boy, one of my top bands of all time. I can never
Mhm.
let them go. And I will say, I genuinely like this album.
Me too.
And one of the reasons why I do like it, I think, is because I got to do a thing when it was released earlier this year that they did a thing with like local record stores
Mhm.
where it was like the night before it was released or a few days, or it was something really close to the day of release. You could go to the record store and they played the album in the record store, like at a certain time, and they had a thing where you could pre-order the vinyl in a exclusive color. It was Coke bottle clear because I got it.
Okay.
And you could get like there was a raffle that I didn't win. I don't remember what you could win. And like a poster that you can get and like a limited amount. And I got one of like a vinyl mat that has like the new little smiley frowny face logo on it.
Yeah.
Um, and you just like hang out in the like just walk around the record store and it just like has the album playing. So the whole time I just
Yeah.
sat underneath like a speaker on the ceiling so I could like hear it really well. Um, and it was really cool also because it had, in between some songs, it had like a little bit of commentary from Pete or Patrick, which was kind
Cool.
of fun. But yeah, I genuinely really like this album. I think it has some songs that like really slap for me. I really like that, like to me, you can tell that it was more of a collaboration again of all the musicians. Like, you know, we have a lot more guitar in there,
Mhm.
which is pretty significant, I think, like to me as a Fall Out Boy fan. I remember one of the things that Patrick said about it was that um, recently he's been doing a lot of work scoring for television, specifically like a Spider-Man cartoon, I think. He's been doing
Hmm.
like scoring work, and so he was talking about that now that he understands composition, like composing music, that it it brings like a whole new better system to writing with the band because now he understands how music works more and can communicate like what he wants and what he's thinking more effectively. And so you know, I don't know how obviously that comes across. Like I feel
No, I
like to me I feel like I want to say that yes, I can hear that, but I don't know if it's just
Mhm.
because I know that and I want to think that I can hear that.
Well, no, because I think that I was gonna say something. I mean, not exactly along those lines, I suppose, but like, the vibe that I get from this album is that it is a bit more. It feels more like a cohesive, like I don't know, like it feels like it was written sort of as like a score, and I think that does come through. Like
Yeah.
I guess I didn't have the words to say that because I didn't know that like specific like tidbit, but that is exactly the vibe that I get from it now that you say that, if that makes sense. Like I definitely see what you mean.
Yeah. I'm not gonna read them, but I remembered that I took notes on my phone
Mm,
when I was listening to them in the record store. So like found the notes on my phone and I was like writing down lyrics and
yeah.
like everything. But yeah, the one thing that I will say about this album that is not necessarily a complaint or a negative thing, just more of an observation leaning negative, is
Okay.
that a lot of the songs on this album to me sound like other songs. Like they remind me
Yes.
of songs that are not Fall Out Boy songs. And I haven't been able to
I
pinpoint any specific song. It's just there are parts of songs on this album that to me like remind me of other songs, which is not the end of the world. Like it happens, whatever. But it's a
it's
little I
yeah.
don't know.
I think it's tough with a band like Fall Out Boy, right? Because like Fall Out Boy has absolutely iconic songs
Mhm.
that are could be nobody but Fall Out Boy.
Mhm.
And I think it's tough when you like compare it to something that sounds a lot more like run of the mill, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, but this is Fall Out Boy.
Right.
Like they wrote like, you know, this ain't a scene, it's an arms
mhm.
race. And you're like, well, why doesn't it sound as like iconic as that song when I heard it for the first time? And it's like,
Mhm.
well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I don't really know what else to say about that point, but it is a point that I wanted to say. It's like if I had
Yeah.
anything negative to say about it, I think that would be the only thing. Because other than that, I mean, even the
Um,
songs that I think remind me of other songs, I still like them.
they're still good.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Agree. I
And
actually
I'm
think we have like very similar opinions.
good. Yeah. And I'm very excited to see them next year. I did get tickets and I'm
Yes.
just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited." So,
One other side note that I want to say before we move on to your number 3
mhm.
is that my prediction going in was that so much for Stardust was going to be your number 1.
It
So
could be
it's
higher.
interesting.
Like I said before, this was so hard. Um
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't
So
I couldn't tell you why I made it number 4. I
yeah.
panicked and I ranked everything.
Well, yeah.
So, yeah.
I now am forming a new prediction for what I think your number 1 is. But
Okay.
anyways, please tell me your number 3.
My number 3. Do you want to say your number 3 because I just shared my number 4 or do you want to keep going like this?
I can, yeah. We can switch it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my number 3 is You Are Who You Hang Out With by the Front Bottoms.
Okay. That is not on my top 5, but it was an honorable mention.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just love the Front
Yeah.
Bottoms. Um
And
and
this
there are
album
some songs
had some hits for me.
it did.
Yeah.
I will say, yeah, one thing about this album is that it's not like straight bangers.
Mm.
It's
Mhm.
not an absolutely no skips like masterpiece, but when it hits, it hits.
Yes. And
Um
I think I saw them earlier this year, right? That was this year? Like early this year? I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I don't know.
It had to have been this year
I
because
did.
it was for this album because I remembered some of these songs being
This
played.
movie came out in like August, I think.
What? Okay. Maybe it wasn't that long ago. I don't know.
Maybe I'm also misinformed, but
Yeah.
maybe
Anyway,
you saw them when some of the singles were out because they had singles.
that could be, yeah, for sure.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I like this album a lot. The song Paris, I remember we specifically texted about.
Yes.
I don't remember what we said, but I remember that we texted about it. And so that's honestly one of the reasons that it made my list and made it
I
to,
remember is because
number 3.
it sounded kind of like something the 1975 would do.
Yes, you're actually right.
Yeah.
That is why. Including the fact that it's called Paris.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I remember that when this album came out, I had things to say about it immediately.
Do you remember those
Um,
things?
well, um, Not really, but I do remember that like when it came out, I was talking to Abe about it. I was talking to you about it. I was listening to it a lot when it came out. I have not listened to it as much in like since it came out, like about 6 months ago or 4 months ago. Um, but it made it so high on my list because at the time that it came out, I listened to it a lot. And that is something that, like I said earlier, I didn't do with a lot of new albums this year. There were a lot of new albums this year that I was like, oh, okay, great. Like, I listened to it enough to, like, know what was on it. And that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty similar for me, except maybe even more intense, where I listened to it um when it came out and like have maybe heard a couple songs on it since then, like for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're on my playlist, like I'll hear them again. I'm not like intentionally not listening to the album, but you know,
Yeah.
that's kind of how the front
Yeah.
bottoms is. They're in the mix. It just gets added,
Yeah.
sprinkled into the mix.
Yeah. I would say that this is not one of my top front bottoms albums.
No.
Last year when they released Teresa, the
Mm-hmm.
EP, that was pretty peak for me. Not like absolute peak, but that was up there for me. And this was not quite as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I still really liked it, and I know I liked it a lot at the time that it came out. And mostly I just haven't listened to it a lot lately, but I think that I still have positive opinions if I were to listen to it more.
Oh yeah, totally.
So, anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I ranked it higher up, but yeah, I don't know. I just like the front bottoms, I think.
Yeah. Well,
What's your number 3?
my number 3, which as I'm like totally with all these, I'm like, oh, I could have switched this with Fallout Boy. I could have done that. Whatever. You know,
Well, yeah.
we're going with it. We already prefaced everything. My
Yeah.
number 3 is Calling the Dogs by Citizen.
Hmm. This is an album I have not heard.
Yeah, it is. I would recommend it. I think it is really good. Um I think I mean I forget how much I love Citizen actually. And
Yeah.
we saw them on Halloween, which was super fun,
Mm-hmm.
at the Aladdin, which is like really close to
Mm.
where I work actually, which is kind of funny. But anyway, not close enough that I could like park at work and walk, which was disappointing because it was really
Oh,
hard to
man.
park. But the Aladdin, when we bought the tickets, we were like, this is weird because the Aladdin has seats that don't remove. So how's this gonna work? Because this
Yeah.
is not a seated show. And the only time we ever been in there was to see Tokay, who's the
Mm-hmm.
singer for Streetlight Manifesto, but it was like him doing his pretty guitar stuff. So we're like, how's this gonna work?
Yeah.
So what happened was there were people in seats, but like people pretty much stood the whole time. But the whole it was a bigger front, like in front of the stage, a bigger empty section than I remembered. I don't know if they do have chairs they can take out or not, but so there was a pit up front. There was a room for a pit. I don't think the security
Interesting.
guards are very happy about it, but there was a pit.
Yeah.
And we ended up at the back off to the side, so like we were basically in the front row of the seats, but the back of the crowd, which turned out to be
Hmm.
a really good place to be, except for when people wanted to leave the crowd and they would just like push
Mhm.
past us to try to leave. And a
Oh.
few times we would try to point, like tell people, you know, go that way because you're gonna hit seats if you go behind us. But you can't communicate that to people. So they just like
Yeah.
would go through us anyway and then hit the seats. It's like, well, now you gotta go that anyway. So
I can turn around.
yeah. So super fun show. It was on Halloween, which I love going to concerts on Halloween because I love doing the dressing up thing. All
Yeah.
of the band was wearing, and I'm sure it's because the album is called Calling the Dogs, and so they were all wearing a different like dog onesie, which was
Good.
super fun. And there was
That's
like
pretty
a
excellent,
big group of
actually.
guys that were like definitely intoxicated that kept like barking in the crowd. And then
That's
at one
funny.
point he started like doing it back at him, which was really funny. Um,
Oh my god.
but yeah, this album to me, I love it. It's in my car right now. I was just listening to it today. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. And it's like, it sounds different than their older stuff. Like they used to be way more like more like broody, like emo rock for sure.
Hmm.
And this
Yeah.
is way more like there's some way more upbeat stuff.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people, I guess, in the media have described them as shoegaze, even though they don't claim that title. So whatever that
Interesting.
means to you, I don't know. But um yeah, so but I realized when I heard these songs mixed with their older songs live, I was like, even though the sound is pretty different if you really think about it, it all
Hmm.
still like goes. Like it's a really good
Yeah.
addition to their discography.
Hmm.
And I think like they just keep doing it for me. I keep being like, man, I need to not sleep on Citizen, you know? I really like this album. So, yeah.
Heck yeah. I
Yeah.
will have to check that out. I like some of Citizen's older stuff. I have not ever like listened to Citizen. It's always been sort of like in passing and sort of
Yeah.
here and there.
Mhm.
But I like everything that I hear. It's like one of those bands where I'm like, why don't I listen to them more?
Right? Yeah.
But like I don't know.
Yeah. It's really, I have to thank Nicole because back when we were younger, first getting
Hmm.
into more of the like rocky alternative emo music,
Hmm.
she was the Citizen girl.
Hmm.
Like she had the CDs, like she was like super super into it, and so I was just kind of into it like because she was, and I'm like, no,
Hmm.
I like this band too. Like what the heck? This is so
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2.
My number two is Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan.
Okay. You spoiled my number 1.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I honestly didn't I had heard like a couple of Hot Mulligan songs like probably I don't know, a year or so ago. I wasn't like I had heard of them and heard a couple of songs, but I honestly wasn't like that into it. I was kind of
Mm.
like, I don't really like this. I don't know. But they opened for the Wonder Years, and so I like made myself like actually listen. And then I was like, okay. Like it's maybe still like a little bit not exactly what I want it to be, but I'm appreciating more. Um and then I literally after we saw the Wonder Years, after we saw them open for the Wonder Years, I started listening to them more. And then I was like, oh no, now I get it. I think it just
Yeah.
like took a little while for me to
Okay.
like get it,
Yeah.
but then I got it, and then I liked it. And then when this album came out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to it, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And yeah, there's a song called "God Damn It, My Toe" or "God My Toe Damn It Hurts" or something like
Yeah,
that. I
something
don't
like
know.
that. Yeah, whatever. Their
Um,
titles make me mad actually.
yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, I could maybe tell you some of the lyrics of the song, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yes, the "Goddamn It Toe Hurt" song, that one slaps. It's
Yeah.
really good, and I
Yeah.
like it a lot, and I play it a lot, and I just think it's really good. And I think the whole album is good. And I get Hot Mulligan now, um, and that's all I have to say, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Well, for me, it's a little bit of the opposite. So I
mm,
knew that they existed before we saw them open for the Wonder Years. But for some reason, I just did not listen to them. I think there's a part of me in recent years that when a new pop punk slash emo, whatever band pops up, I like actively try to avoid it. And I
mm,
think that a part of it is because I'm like, I listen to too many whiny white boys and I need to limit myself.
yeah.
If I'm gonna listen to new music, I need to diversify. Um,
Well, yeah.
so so I wasn't listening to them like on purpose, which is like probably silly, but it's probably mostly subconsciously, really. It's not like that conscious, but um I had heard about them and I was hearing more and more about them, in the scene. They were getting bigger and I'm like, I don't know. And so I did not listen to them until I checked them out before we saw the Wonder Years because I'm like, well, okay, fine. They're opening for the Wonder Years. I should listen to them. And
Well, yeah, same.
immediately,
Yeah.
like first song, I was like, I love this.
Yeah. There's a couple of songs by them that I think are just like peak. Like they're so good. I like listen to them and I'm just like I want to turn this up to like a million in my car.
Yeah.
Like I just want to like scream and like listen to this.
Yeah.
But then some of them I'm like how many songs are we going to start by like just like yelling in a weird way?
Oh, sure. I
When they go
will
like
say,
fat, you're
yeah.
like okay.
I will say that even though I really liked them from the first listen, I did not and have not, other than the album from this year, listen to a whole album by them, like front to back. Like the only other Hot
Yeah.
Mulligan songs that I know are a handful because of checking them out before I saw them. And I really like all
Yeah.
those songs, but I have not gone back and like listened to full albums. I don't know if I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I haven't. But those songs that I like, I really, really like. Um, I will say, they did play at the show where I just saw them. They did play every song on this album.
Wow.
Including, what's it called? Betty?
Wow. Okay.
Which all of you skip. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I do skip that one.
Yeah.
I've heard it like all the way through like once.
Yeah.
And did you know I thought it was about a dead dog?
Mm.
It's about a dead rat.
Oh, I actually did know that. I think they like
Really?
put something on Instagram or something like when the
Oh.
album came out maybe.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
I like didn't I mean, I kind of forgot about it until you just said it again, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think they did put something on Instagram about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess
But
it's the only album on
yeah,
my list that has a song that I would say is a skip for me, which is like kind of funny, but it's still like I still put it at number 1. Because
yeah,
it just like there's something so fun about a newer emo band, like a band that like identifies as emo and is a part of that scene that is doing something right, I would say. Like they're doing
yeah,
something like new even though it's, from an older genre and has like an older emo sound and it's so fun and it's like I mean, this band this year, I mean, I just saw them. I just crowd surfed for the first time. It wasn't to a song on this album, but it was like
yeah,
it's a big time for me for Hot Mulligan, and I'm like I'm on
yeah.
the train, like I get it. And this
No,
album,
yeah,
yeah, it was super fun.
I agree. No, I do agree. I really do like Hot Mulligan. It took me a second to, and I think it is in part due to what you were saying about like they're this like new emo band and everybody is kind of like losing their shit about Hot Mulligan, and I'm like, I don't know. And then I like let myself like really hear it, and I was like, oh, okay, actually this is good. Um, and yeah, I really like this album. I like a lot of their older songs as well. Um, and they were really fun to see live. I didn't go to their headlining show. I just saw them open for the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
And one other thing I did want to say also, I'll just side note really quick, is that we saw the Wonder Years twice, like 2 tours, but we saw more than 2 shows
Yeah.
from the Wonder Years in the calendar year of 2023. I think we saw the Wonder Years 3 times.
Oh, just this year? I thought. Hold on.
Just this year, because there was something early in the year, and then there was in October.
Yeah.
So we did see the Wonder Years 3 times. And so I feel like the Wonder Year, like I listened to the Wonder Years an absolute ton this year, but they didn't
Yes.
release a new album.
No, yeah, it is kind of funny.
So yeah, I kind of like when I was making this list, I was like, oh, like the Wonder Years, but I was like, oh, they didn't.
Yeah.
They.
I
Didn't.
literally looked up on Spotify like to make sure when their last album was released, and I'm like, yeah, it was 2022. Like it could have been this year for the amount of times that we've seen them.
Yeah. So I do feel like when you were saying like, oh yeah, a lot of my listening is like, based on who I'm seeing in concert. I kind of feel like the Wonder Years were that for me. Like I was listening to the Wonder Years a ton.
Yeah.
But they actually didn't release an album this year,
Yeah.
so that's why they
If
are
they
not.
did, though, it would probably be both of our number one.
And it was last year.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. But anyways, who's your number two?
My
Even though
number
we just spoiled
two.
your number one.
I know. I feel like you could also predict this, but like I'll say it anyway. My number two is No Joy by Spanish Love Songs.
Yeah, and this is actually in my honorable mentions.
Okay. Yeah. It's really, I mean, another band that is in that emo scene. They're not new. I've been sleeping on Spanish Love Songs for a long time.
Oh, absolutely same. Yeah. I think we both were until they opened for the Wonder Years, and then we were like, oh,
yeah,
what have we been doing?
I had someone tell me my senior year of college to listen to them, and then I didn't, and I feel bad. but I finally have, and this album just really hits the spot. Like, if you are an emo, listen to this album. It's like it's I mean, it's one of the albums of the years for me. What else can I say? Like, and live, it was just because they were an opener, because this was, Heart Attack Man, Spanish Love Songs, Hot Mulligan, all three of these bands, same show, all have new albums. I don't, I feel bad because you couldn't go. And I feel bad for, talking about it so much, but, truthfully, I really, me personally, and I mean, you could tell because all of the albums from these artists are on this list, I could not miss this show for me. I am I'm going to look back as an emo person, as a person who, identifies with that group of people. And people are going to be like, holy crap, that was a stacked lineup. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I was there. This is the show, these bands, these albums. When Spanish Love Songs released this album, I was there,
I will say, okay, I really liked No Joy by Spanish Love Songs.
Yeah.
But, and this is the reason it's not in my top 5. It is an honorable mention, but it's not in my top 5, is because their other album is maybe one of my top albums of all time.
And here's another one of the faults of mine, is they are also an artist that I will now, for sure. But I know a handful of their other songs. I have not listened to any of their other albums front to back yet.
Oh.
Yeah. And I need to. That kind of shows, I guess, a little bit of my listening history this year, how I was talking about, I feel like I didn't really branch out that much. That's another example, is there are these other albums. I need, other songs by these artists and that I really need to delve into.
Yeah. I was trying to find it on my shelf really quick so I could maybe say, because I don't know any of the names of the songs.
The singles, it's the singles for me, in terms of albums being an experience as an album, funny enough, the singles for me on this album are really the ones that stand out. Haunted, Cleanup Crew, specifically those two, and they played those live as well, especially Haunted. There was something about it live. I loved it before I saw it live, and something about it live. He has this, the complete opposite of Hot Mulligan guys. Sorry, I don't know any of their names. The complete opposite of Hot Mulligan.
Yeah.
I don't understand a freaking thing Hot Mulligan is saying. I heard those songs. I heard those songs so much before the show, and I only knew a handful of lyrics because I'm I do not understand a word that you're saying. But the Spanish Love Songs, you can understand almost every single word that he's saying. And the way that it hit live, you can feel it in the crowd. To me, and I don't know if this is true because I'm not in people's heads, I'm not a psychic, but to me there was a vibe at the show that, even people who didn't know their songs or, know the words to their songs were, hearing them and understanding them and being affected by them. You know what I mean? Being oh, wow, they come through so clearly, and it's, really adds to the experience.
I think that's like very I guess in line with my experience seeing them when we saw them open for the Wonder Years. Eight like hadn't heard them, and I had only really heard them like a little bit. Like I hadn't really listened to them before we saw them open for the Wonder Years. But I remember being so affected by their set
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like that's why
Exactly.
we literally bought the vinyl there, like at the
Yeah.
show.
Justin
And
bought the
like,
same shirt that Abe has.
oh good, good.
Yeah.
Um yeah, but I Brave Faces Everyone, their first album, or actually I don't think it's their first album, but their album before this one that we like saw them perform a bunch of songs from when they opened for the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
Absolutely has like just like taken over like a place in one of my top like 10 albums of all time.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
really need
think
to
I was
listen to
aware of
it
it.
because the songs that I know from that album, I know that if I were to really become familiar with their discography, I may rank something else over this one, you know.
Yeah.
But
I think
yeah.
that's the only reason No Joy really didn't make, and it's sort of why like so much for Stardust was like lower too, is like I'm comparing Fall Out Boy to Fall
Yeah.
Out Boy.
Totally. I understand completely what you mean. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, No Joy isn't as good as Brave Faces Everyone. So like it doesn't make the list. But I do really like it, and I really like Spanish love songs. I think they're so good. And I do want to listen to No Joy more because when I have listened to it, I have been affected by some of the songs a lot. Yeah. So I agree. It is a really good album.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we only have your number one, right? And then we're going to list our honorable mentions. But most importantly, what is your number one album of the year?
My number one album of the year, I think, is kind of a wild card.
Okay.
And it is My God by Tessa Violet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you saw her this year, right?
I
Like
did.
open for another band? Or did you also see her
So
headline?
I saw her open for Half Alive,
Yeah.
and then I also saw her headline.
Okay.
So yeah, I saw her twice this year. Both times. So I saw her open, and she opened right before she released this album, and then I saw her headline like right after she
Sweet.
released this album. And her first album, so she only has two albums. She has like her first album, and then she has this album. And her first album was a top album of mine when it came out. And this album, and it was like years ago. She released Bad Ideas, I think, in 2019. So it's been a couple of years. And then My God was released this year. And I was sort of like, when Bad Ideas was released, it was a top album of mine amongst a bunch of albums that were nothing like it. And then this album also is like a top album of mine,
Yeah.
amongst albums that like
Yeah.
are nothing like it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm impressed it's your number one because I literally like have not heard any of it. Like, I'm very unfamiliar with Tessa Violet, so it's very intriguing to me.
It is my number one, mostly due to the fact that it's the album that I've played the most.
Yeah.
I also, like I said, I saw her twice this year, which there's no other artist, well, besides the Wonder Years, who I've seen 3 times this year. She's the only artist that I've seen like more than once. And she, I don't know, like there's just something about it that like gets to my brain. Like it's definitely pop music, right? So like it's definitely the genre of pop, but I think she draws a lot of influence from more alt sound.
Okay.
And there's something about pop music, like it's certainly pop music, but it's like has these little hints and little nods to like different things. I don't really know how to describe it other than that, but it just like itches my brain in a good way.
Okay.
But anyways, I think the lyrics on this album, like the narrative through the full album, like I'm really a sucker for like an album that's very cohesive and like
Oh yeah.
well put together, you know. I think it's really good. I think she did a really good job. It's hot pink. The album cover is hot
Oh
pink and
good.
she's just like sitting in like this really iconic outfit. So that does a lot for me. Um there's one song on it called Bad Bitch that is just a really, I think, iconic track. And I don't know how to like talk about it really. Especially because I know you haven't like really heard it. But yeah, I just think that she like did what needed to be done, I guess. Like it just worked so well. She like was very smart about it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways, that's my top album of the year. I think a lot of the songs on the album are really good, but Bad Bitch in particular.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect that. I'll have to listen to like at least one song.
Yeah, you should listen to one song and just see.
Yeah.
But please tell me your honorable mentions.
My honorable mentions are I put Fiddler's That's Life EP.
Okay.
Because it's like it's an EP, but you know I like also saw them this year and it was like super fun time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah.
Hell yeah.
The Front Bottoms, You Are Who You
Mhm.
Hang Out With. Yumi at 6, Truth Decay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't listened to that, but I like Yumi at 6. I don't know. I guess I didn't even know they had an album out.
Right? Yeah. I like very I follow them like from a distance, I guess, like not super closely, but I'm like, oh sure, yeah, like they released a new album, and there's some bangers on it, like that I have listened to multiple times this year. So,
okay,
yeah. And my last honorable mention is "Speak Now," Taylor's version by Taylor Swift.
My number one honorable mention that actually almost made my top actual list.
Yeah.
Is 1989
Yeah.
Taylor's version.
I was like waiting for that to be in your top 5, like for one of her,
but because 1989 actually came out like a long time ago, I couldn't actually put it on the list, I don't think. But 1989 was an important album to me, and 1989 Taylor's version was a pretty big one for me.
Yeah.
So it is the top of my honorable mentions.
And
list.
Speak Now was really big for me, like when it came out originally. So I was like, yeah, this can be an honorable mention. That was a moment for me this year. Yeah. What are your other honorable mentions?
Guts by Olivia Rodrigo.
You know, I have not heard anything by her, and I'm trying not to let the media convince me that she's annoying, because I have that hipster brain that's like, ugh, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But
she's sweet, I think.
Yeah.
I honestly don't really know much about her as
what
a
does she do that's popular?
Well, so she was in High School Musical, the show.
Oh, I literally don't know anything about that. But what does she have that's like on the radio?
That was like a while ago, and then she did Driver's License, which was like her big like song. Oh. But that's not on this album. That was like on the previous album.
I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about it, but I can't get into the. I don't know.
She has some bangers.
Yeah, sure.
She has some bangers. Okay. Guts has like 2 songs that I think are actually like really, really good, and then a lot of songs that I'm like, okay. So, you know, honorable mention, I suppose. Yeah. The Long Way by John Allison Weiss.
I don't know who that is.
You do actually. Okay. When we saw the Wonder Years in England and AW opened.
Yeah.
They go by John Allison Weiss now.
Oh, okay. That's cool that you still follow them.
Yeah, this album was like kind of an impulse, like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll just like see. Yeah. And I like it a lot. I think it's like it's very genuine in a way that I think is good.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a good one. The Spanish Love Songs album was on my honorable mentions. Sonic Tonic by Swimmers.
Swimmers released an album this year?
Yes, and it's called Sonic Tonic.
Oh my gosh. I
Um,
stopped listening to them after the Joey drama.
yeah. I think I don't know. I honestly actually don't know, but I am pretty sure that there's like been some kind of statement
I
about that.
literally thought that I would see it if there was anything because I don't think I completely, I didn't like block anything, but I was just kind of
Mhm.
like, I'll just kind of whatever. There's bands I like better,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I did not know that they released an album. Oh my gosh. And it was good
Yeah.
enough to be on your honorable mentions.
I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
It's not yeah, it's not Drive North, but
Yeah.
it's really good.
Okay.
And yeah, I am not going to speak to if they are right with the world, but
Yeah, we don't need to.
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea, but I thought the album was pretty good. Not my like top 5, but
Mhm.
pretty good. And then my last honorable mention is The Record by Boy Genius.
Okay. I also do not know anything by Boy Genius, but I have heard of them.
Yeah, Phoebe Bridgers is like in Boy
Oh
Genius.
yeah. See, I am so out of touch with whatever the kids in the top 40s and I just don't know what's
Yeah.
going on over there.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty good. I got it on vinyl actually for my birthday from one of my friends
Aw.
because she really likes it and she, obviously knows that I like have records and
Yeah.
um she wanted to get me like an album that she really likes and I listened to it and I really like it. I it's not like a top album of all time for me by any means, but I
Sure.
like it a lot. And one thing that's actually really cool about the vinyl is that they engraved it in a way
Oh,
or
I
like
love that.
I don't well, it's like it's not like engraved with a pattern. It's like when they did the vinyl, they made it so that at the end of one of the sides, it like stays in an infinite loop, like it never ends.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
made it so that like the music track that the needle like follows, like when you get to the end, it just plays the same thing over and over and over again until you
Oh
stop it.
wow. That's really interesting. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, and I thought that was a cool touch and I liked it a lot. And that's not why it's an honorable mention, but almost.
Yeah. It adds.
Yeah, it adds for sure. So yeah, that's my honorable mentions.
Okay. We should totally do a podcast. Have we done a podcast just talking about our music taste? Because we should totally do a podcast we just
We
talk about
should
our music
because
taste.
yeah, clearly, I mean, I don't know. We have very overlapping
Yeah.
music
We
tastes, but
we are a Venn
different in
diagram.
specific
Yeah.
ways. Yes.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
should literally do
Agreed.
a Venn diagram. That'd
Yes.
be
Yeah.
funny.
That would be.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, it was good. It was a good year. I think
Yeah.
I think there have been other years of music that have had like more profound effects
Yeah.
on me
There were
than this year.
years of
But
music where it was a lot harder to narrow it down to 5, and this was like very easy for me. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I agree. But yeah, I'm glad we got to get back together, get the band back together,
Yeah.
and talk about our top albums of the year. And I know that we want to do a book recap
Oh yeah.
at some
Our
point.
part 2.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that in the next like couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then we'll be on to 2024.
Oh my gosh. No reaction to that.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for talking about albums with me.
Yeah, of course. I love it. I love doing this.
Me too. We always talk the longest
Yeah.
when we are talking about music.
Yeah.
So yeah, but until next time, I love you.
I love you too.
Goodbye.
Bye.